Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elevenses with the Reps at Diesel Bookstore. This is our safe space for the next 40 minutes to an hour, where we meet every Wednesday with our wonderful publishers, representatives, and our booksellers and authors and everyone else who wants to do a deep dive into the new, upcoming, and recently released titles that all of our wonderful professionals want you to know more about, so that you can add them to your list and that you can order them. And to that end, we post the links to all of the books that we talk about today in the little chat area down there. So you can order them directly from Diesel. And after you hear about the books today, you're definitely going to want all of them. So I am going to introduce the reps we have joining us today in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about a few events that are going on at the store at Diesel this upcoming week. Because we've got a lot going on. It's a very busy summer. Starting tomorrow, which is the 9th already of July, at 7 p.m., we have Jessica Knoll with Danielle Robay, and they're discussing and signing Helpless. That's Jessica Knoll tomorrow at 7, talking about and signing Helpless. And then on Sunday, the 12th at 3 p.m., Jaime Goodrich with Christa Miller. They're going to be discussing and signing Jaime Goodrich's book, Unleashed, How to Bring Out the Best in Your Dog. And that is going to be on Sunday at 3 p.m. And Tuesday, which will already be the 14th of July, next week at 6:30 p.m., Robinne Lee will be discussing and signing Crash Into Me. And then that is a novel, and joining her in conversation, Yvette Nicole Brown will also be there. So that's going to be Tuesday, the 14th of July at 6:30 p.m. And if you want to know more about upcoming events, they are all listed on dieselbookstore.com, so you can check those out at your leisure. All right, we have some absolutely incredible, wonderful books to talk about today. And we have our favorite reps here to talk about them. And who are those favorite reps? Well, let me introduce them. We have joining us Dave Ehrlich from Chronicle Books, Julia Callahan from Hachette, and Tom Benton from Penguin. All of them returning champions to the Elevenses stage. So Dave, why don't you lead us off? We haven't seen you for a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
All right, happy to jump in. I'm a little unusual today. I am not going to open with a cookbook. In fact, I am not doing a single cookbook today.
Not a
So,
single one.
so I'm
I
totally
can't believe
disoriented. I'm not making anyone hungry, and I'm not telling you how much I like eating cheese. So we're gonna jump over the usual, and we're gonna go right into a travel book because it is indeed travel season. Everybody's taking trips. I just got back from one myself, and I should have used this, but I had a great trip anyways. This is from Intrepid. This is a division of Hardy Grant, one of our distributed publishers. We've done a lot of books with this company, Intrepid, travel books on individual locations. This is a really cool compendium of cultural experiences that you can take all around the globe. It is put together by a team of over 30 writers that have written for Intrepid, that are kind of considered the Intrepid house team. These writers are from around the world. They're often locals in the places that they're writing about. So they have an amazing insider's kind of angle on cultures, customs, traditions. A lot of the tips in here are, well, all of the tips in here are written to get you off of the tourist track, to help you find truly unique experiences when you travel, things that will help you connect with a culture and a community and the people. And it's also written in a really ethical way that is made to be low impact on the places that you are visiting. It is written with a really great respect and a lot of kind of care for these places and these people, and to help you integrate and kind of connect with these places and cultures and people and experiences without being like a jerk tourist. A challenge for some Americans, as I can tell you, having just returned from Spain. So yeah, it's a nice little pocket size flexi. It's divided into sections. There are food and drink experiences. such as taking a craft beer journey to Bangalore, India. You can sample string cheese, chorizo, mezcal, and grasshoppers in Oaxaca. You can also do that in parts of Los Angeles, but you should travel to Oaxaca and do it. You can find the world's best baklava in Turkey. Those are just some food and drink experiences. There are also really cool art and architecture experiences. You can visit James Turrell's Rodin Crater. I highly recommend that. You can, where's another cool one here? I like this a lot. You can go, there's a little guide here to finding Korean vinyl record bars where there are DJs that spin not only kind of 60s and 70s American funk and soul and R&B classics, but they also mix in covers from local bands of a lot of these kind of American standards and classics, which is totally fun. I love hearing a foreign language cover version of a song that I know. It's like a thrill. And that seems like a really fun cultural experience. You can also, hold on, I have like sort of little dog ears here, different festivals that you can visit kind of around the world. Gate crashing, an Indian wedding. There's Songkran, which is the world's biggest water fight in the streets. You can, of course, experience Dia de los Muertos in Mexico or experience Ramadan in the high Atlas Mountains. So again, everything in here is written with like a real respect for the regions and the people. These are experiences that you're not going to find. I'm not going to name any names, but we all know who the giant travel guides are and how touristy and kind of obvious the spots are. Nothing in here is obvious. It's all just really unique places to explore and insider knowledge to help illuminate and inform your next getaway. That is Intrepid List Culture. You have this in store now.
I enjoy traveling, but I really hate being a tourist anywhere. I always want to feel like, if somebody encounters me in somewhere in a store, like I don't scream, that I'm from anywhere in the US or anywhere really,
Good strategy.
but I want to blend in and get a completely different experience. But I also think that any of us who have worked in retail at any point, you know, a restaurant or anything, tourists when they come in, and it's just there's this dread among, staff, like always, because tourists don't understand, and respect and all of that kind of stuff. And so this is like it's like my dream book, for checking so that you can avoid all of that. I guess some people don't care and they won't be buying this book, but I think a lot of people do care about that. I
But
mean,
yeah,
some people want to be ugly Americans where they don't care. But I think a lot of people do, and they want to be respectful, and and you get you get a much better
it
experience.
enriches your experience. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The more
Yeah.
respect you put out, the more respect you get back. And I think you connect
Yeah.
deeper with a place in a
Yeah.
more meaningful, profound way.
Yeah. And people open up and share things with you. And, and going places where you speak the language, and having been on both sides of this and, being in a place where you speak the language, it's a totally different, just a different experience altogether. So great idea. Great book. Great travel book companion to have. Thank you, Dave. I know it's not a cookbook, but I'll take it. All right, Julia, what's your first book?
Okay, well, my first book also has to do with place, but less exciting place than the kind of travel that Dave's talking about. This is a novel. It's by Justin Halperin. It's called Get Lost. And Justin Halperin, you may remember him as the author of the book Shit My Dad Says, which I did one of the first events for, if not the first event for, when it came out a number of years ago. I hesitate to say how many, but that was like nonfiction. He was sort of, it was a really, big Twitter account where he would like quote his dad, and then he made it into a book, and he was so funny. And it was so fun. It got made into a TV show at one point, and someone reminded me the other day that William Shatner played the dad.
William Shatner,
Yeah,
it was crazy.
But this is Justin's first foray into fiction, and in the interim, since Shit My Dad Says, he became he has worked in Hollywood quite a bit, and he became the co-executive producer of Abbott Elementary. So he's got some great comedy chops. And Get Lost, I feel like, showcases that. So this is a book, I would compare it most to like a Carl Hiaasen novel. There's a thriller to it. There's crime that happens throughout in the book. And then, you know, Carl Hiaasen sort of, I think what he does so well is like focus his lens on Florida and the like sort of some of the more ridiculousness of Florida. I mean, it's true, but ridiculous. And Justin Halpern takes a similar lens and points it at the Central Valley of California. So, you know, Fresno, Bakersfield, sort of this area in California that if you're from California, I'm certain you have an opinion about it, no matter what that opinion is. If you're not from California, it might not be, you might be surprised to know that a place like Fresno exists within California. It's sort of, because I feel like it feels so almost antithetical to what most people think of as California, but I assure you it exists. And Justin Halpern sure does put a pretty entertaining, but also, you know, as a third generation Californian, I would say a pretty honest lens on that part of the state. And it's about this young woman whose mother goes missing, and she sort of has to enlist her deadbeat dad, who hasn't really been around at all, to like try to find her mother. And so it's a father-daughter story in this like weird way. It's heartfelt, like it's got some great heartfelt moments. It's hilariously funny. And it also will take you on an absolute thrill ride. So I would call it the perfect read if you are getting away somewhere and you have some time to relax and sit down with a book. This is one of those books that's just going to grab you by the lapels and pull you right through. It's delightful. It's hilarious. It's irreverent. This is Get Lost by Justin Halpern. And I think I actually had a bookseller call me on the phone after she read The Galley and tell me how great it was, and like explicitly broke down every part that she loved. And so it's definitely, from what I've seen of reactions from readers, it's been great so far. And I can only hope that you guys get your hands on it and have a great time with it. So
I'm not sure what I can add to that, Julia. Except weirdly, I am seeing Fresno as like it's coming up lately in books.
I mean, we're like really grappling with the existence of Fresno in literature right now.
It's so funny. It's so funny though, because I remember when I was in college a million years ago, and before I knew much about California at all, and I had this friend, or I met this friend, and he was from Fresno, and everybody was like, what is Fresno? Like, where is that? and I remember asking him, what's Fresno like? And he was like, dry, flat, boring, never coming back.
I mean, all adjectives one could use to describe it. I agree.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. And he has such a funny, you know, like a great eye and a funny way of looking at things. And yeah. I just think that any book right now that sort of unexpectedly, you know, grabs you in that way and makes you laugh and makes you look at things in a slightly different way. And California contains multitudes, you know, California is such an interesting place. And I keep learning more and more about California history in little pockets here and there of what has gone on in California. It's fascinating. And this is a really great addition, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Thank you, Julia.
You.
Your first book?
I'm going to take you to Waterville, Maine. It's far from California.
Maine!
Possibly, yes. So this is We Will See You Bleed by Ron Currie. So last year we published The Savage Noble Death of Babs Dionne, which was a fantastic book, showed up on many, you know, best of the year crime novels for sure. Because he's a terrific novelist, and now he's turned to writing thrillers. So this is a series, very ambitious series that he's beginning here. So this is book 2. The first book, The Babs Dionne, the Savage Noble Death of Babs Dionne, was set in 2016. Now he takes us back to 1984 and the origin story of Babs, we know some things about her. We know that She killed a man as a teenager. She walked out of the woods covered in blood and swore off violence. That's one thing we know. But she's sorely tested in this year, this very hot summer of 1984. It's a year of a strike at the local paper mill in Waterville, Maine. And it's turned, the strike, of course, has turned neighbor against neighbor, and violence is starting to erupt. And she's trying her best to hold things together, because in this town, in the first book, we learned about Little Canada, which is a neighborhood in Waterville, Maine. So that's where we are. And that's one of the reasons if I read a crime novel, I want to know about the place, the people, and I want it to be very authentic. And that's what you get here. I mean, we learn about Little Canada, intimately. It's also a place where the men are broken. I mean, it's 1984. There's this strike at the paper mill, which we know just from historical perspective is going to play out over the next 20, 30 years. And it's time for the women to rise up and take control of their community, which ultimately happens, as we saw in the first book. So it's a novel. It's always a crime novel, but you are learning so much about this time and this place. And, we as a country are right this minute talking about Maine in a way we haven't thought about Maine a lot. We don't think about Maine a lot, but we're thinking about it right now because of the politics of Maine. And if you want to learn about Maine, this is the place to go. It's funny, it's poignant, it's violent, it's dark, it's disturbing, it's fantastic. It's really a fantastic thriller. If you like Long Bright River, any of the novels of S.A. Cosby, Ozark, the Netflix show, this is a book for you. And you don't have to have read the first book, for sure, because it's a prequel, but I highly recommend reading them all. And I end with Stephen King's great quote, another Mainer. "We will see you bleed" as a thriller in the best sense. You can't put the damn thing down, and the story of these down and outs fighting the powers that be will stay with you a long time. Solid gold guarantee. So, We Will See You Bleed, Ron Currie.
And I've heard he's working on there's a third one coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a trilogy or if it's a longer work, but at least a trilogy.
No, I think it's about her again.
Yeah.
And I really do think a lot of people want to learn more about Maine right now.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
know, it's just an interesting. It's sort of like Fresno. It's not like Fresno, but I mean, in that it's an interesting position, like geographically, Maine,
Mhm.
and I do think that it is so close to Canada, and the border places are always interesting places to
Exactly, yeah.
to get to know, and this one really, really does that. It captures that whole atmosphere in addition to, bringing a really great thriller along with it. And also very nice. I love that you don't have to read the other one because this is a prequel, but
Yeah.
it will automatically make you go to the other one. So
Yeah.
it goes both ways. So,
And it's very much about working class people. Ron Currie is very concerned with that. And also both books, this is not long after the Vietnam War, which has its echoes and repercussions for the characters in this book. And then the first book, we're not long after the Iraq War,
right.
Afghanistan. So it's very much about the times we're in right now, but an incredible thriller at the same time.
Yeah, really great. Thank you, Tom. All right, Dave, back to you.
Okay, thank you. My next title today is called Gizmo, the retro tech we loved and lost. This comes to us from author Simon Tyler. It is published by Lawrence King Publishing, one of our distributed lines at Chronicle Books. And it is just a really fun, slightly oversized hardcover visual collection of exactly what the subtitle says, all the retro tech that we grew up with, we loved, and is now gone. But there is a strange kind of affection and adoration for so many of these kind of devices. A quick word on devices. You're probably holding one in your hand right now. There's probably one in your pocket. My desk is cluttered and covered with them, as is the house. Back in the kind of late 70s and early 80s, I'm a child of that period. There were devices for all sorts of things, and you needed different devices to make a movie or to record video or to take a photo or to listen to music or to use like GPS or to use a calculator. All of those things, of course, are now condensed in this little guy. Everything is in one device. So this was an amazing time when all of these things were very distinctive and they were very individual and very unique. And they all served a purpose. One of the biggest elements of this book and one of the kind of largest things in consumer home electronics in this period were games. So there's a great section in here of a lot of games that if you grew up in the 70s or 80s, you're going to remember. But what Simon has done is he started, and there's over 750 devices and gizmos in this book. He began by hand drawing each one of these things. He hand drew all 750 devices in this book, and then he went into, I'm sure, Illustrator or some sort of program, and then of course, refined and kind of cleaned them up. We all know the old Apple II. I can't even do justice to how cool these illustrations are. There's a lot of warmth to them. Some people had, of course, the Commodore PET. Not as cool as the Apple II, maybe. Remember the Commodore C64 is in here. There's all sorts of like different kind of like drawing devices and tablets that people were using in the 70s and 80s. He gives a kind of overview of each device just in a nice little encapsulated paragraph, giving you the history of the conception of the device, the construction, kind of the research of the background that went into making all of these things. Music, obviously, is a big gizmo that we all had. Look at this cute little record player. This just kills me. It's from a company called Teenage Engineering. Can't go wrong with that. The weird thing is that it only plays 5-inch vinyl. Vinyl is the tiniest vinyl I know is a 7-inch single. So I don't know what that device was meant to play, because this is the smallest vinyl in my house. Most of my vinyl, obviously, in anybody's is going to be a 12-inch or an LP. But we're also living in a time where vinyl is back and it, is outselling digital streams. It's outselling, thank God, CDs. There's a return to loving this kind of technology and embracing this older technology that is still with us. This is wild, but here in Silver Lake, there is a store called Whammy Analog Media on Sunset. They're moving down the street soon, but it's all VHS tapes. And they do screenings in a micro cinema of films projected from a VHS, from a VCR. So there's this amazing embrace with millennials right now, with Gen Z, and even people like me and Gen X that remember these things, of all this technology that is gone, but it still lives on in our lives, and we still all find ways to find it and celebrate it. I'm pretty confident in telling you that nobody has a soft spot in their heart for a fax machine, but they are in here. I know I'm like, oh God, I love that fax machine. I really have such warm memories of changing the ink ribbon in the fax machine. There's like the Sony Walkman. We all know this, of course. I think it's amazing that many of us lived in a time where you could carry an entire library of music on a portable device. And now that's the most commonplace thing in the world because, with Spotify, you have 20 million songs at the, prompting immediately. I said there were games. A lot of people will remember Simon. Of course, Speak and Spell, that little robot voice still haunts my nightmares. This thing called Big Track that Milton Bradley made was a little kind of chugga industrial tank vehicle that you would program a path. So it's an example of how very early robotics were coming into people's homes. Again, in the late 70s to early 80s, having a robot in your house was unheard of. This Tony little guy, I remember this little feller. Again, different, just very rudimentary and very basic robotic functions. People may remember the Little Professor calculator. I'm sure somebody has a fond spot for that. But it's just such a zippy, fun, playful book. Like I said, a lot of this retro tech is coming back and is with us and is celebrated, but a lot of it is gone. So he does a good balance of things that you're like, what the hell was that? I never saw that device, or wow, I barely remember this from my childhood, or things that again are kind of still with us, like vinyl and this crazy renaissance of VHS, which I fully support. So really fun book. This is $25 hardcover, and you got this in stock now. Gizmo.
What a fun book. What a great gift also. One of the funniest things, my son uncovering the vinyl records from my dad, I think they were like, we had this collection like from the way back, and then going, what are these really big CDs?
Of course. What do I do with this?
And then of course, then I came back around. But it's interesting you talk about Spotify, because with all of that now, I find I actually listen to music less, than when it was like when you had, whatever device it was at the time that and then like listeners right there. Now it feels like I can't.
It's fragmented and it's scattered. I mean, just to sit and listen to an entire record the way the artist intended,
Yeah.
like the flow and the
Yeah.
experience of both sides of an album. And you do have to get up in the middle and flip it, which is fun for sure. But like that's the experience, and
But
that's
even if you
gone in this
don't flip it,
capability.
right? Even if you're just listening to it, and not flipping it, listening to it on something else, it's not like it's not going to get interrupted by an ad, or like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's really different.
Yeah,
Kind of.
less immersive now.
Yeah, I don't know. And it seems like more of a hassle. And these things, and then of course, if you knew anybody and we all do, or we are ourselves, tech heads, who like wanted the latest, whatever it was, like, going back to things like 8 tracks and, stuff like that. It's really, it's fun for when you remember when these things, or don't remember, but
Yeah.
are learning for the first time, about what is that thing,
Did you know that a lot of like indie record labels are doing cassette releases now of
Right.
brand new records? I mean, it's not the greatest format, but
No, that is a bad trend.
I see the charm. I see the charm, but it sounds like
The charm. Yeah, it comes with a little pencil, right? So you
right.
can like
Crank
bind
it.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Always.
fun book, and the illustration, and this took him years, right, to put
Yeah,
together.
it took him many years to pull
Yeah.
this together.
It's a lot
Pretty
of care.
laborious.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. All right, Julia, back to you.
All right. Well, I won't move us off of music, but so my next book, it's now out in paperback. This came out in hardcover last year, or in 2024. I'm sorry, not last year. But this is a paperback edition of There Was Nothing You Can Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland by Stephen Hayden. So this is a great musical criticism, or sort of musical deep dive into the album Born in the USA. And so Stephen Hayden, I think, is one of the best rock critics working today. His book, Your Favorite Band Is Killing Me, is one of my favorite music books of all time. And this book, though, dives into the album Born in the USA, and sort of, I was thinking of this as like a post 4th of July sort of like way to deal with your maybe mixed feelings about celebrating the 4th of July as, things happen in this country. But this book really, like, what it dives into is how this album arrived, like sort of what the reception was, and also then like how people both interpreted and misinterpreted the album. So of course, famously, Reagan uses the song Born in the USA, seemingly having not heard any of the lyrics, as his like as his song. And so Hayden really dives into the history of like where were we in America at the time that this arrives, right? You have unions sort of on the wane, these jobs that people sort of sustain themselves on, they're going away quickly, and the Rust Belt and the heartland of America is sort of starting to suffer, and in ways suffering, what they are still suffering to this day. The AV Club wrote a great review of this and said Stephen Hayden writes about Bruce Springsteen's monumental 1984 record as a watershed moment for American culture, for Springsteen, and for the author himself. So he said Hayden mixes memoir, sociological observation, and good old-fashioned journalism to explore how this blockbuster album defined a decade and created, and in some ways ended, the Bruce Springsteen persona. So it really dives into a number of different elements of the album, both within the context of American culture, within Stephen Hayden's own history, and then also within sort of Bruce Springsteen's career. So this is a great book by a great music critic about Springsteen and Born in the USA, and sort of how I think it's still very pertinent to what we see today. I think, sort of like where we are as a country is even more, I don't know, maybe we need this album even more than we did in 1984 in some ways. So, so this is for the music fans out there. This is Stephen Hayden's There Was Nothing You Could Do, and it's now out in paperback, which means it's much more affordable than the hardcover used to be. So you can take it to the beach with you.
Yes, take it to the beach with you,
Or
but he's still, it's amazing because he's still, he's still banging that drum, Bruce Springsteen, right? And which I think Tom can speak to. Tom, having read this book and
seen him 3 times this year.
Right, exactly.
But this is I've read a lot of Bruce Springsteen books. This is definitely among the very best of them because it puts the album in such important perspective.
And Tom reminded me the other day that he didn't play Dancing in the Dark for a really long time and has started playing it again. Right?
No, it was Born in the USA.
Born in the USA, sorry.
The song Born in the USA.
Right.
He didn't play
and started playing it again
for like
because of
20 years because what had happened to the song.
Right. It's kind of like his Stairway to Heaven, I guess.
Right. But also just the misinterpretation. He played it in Europe, but he wouldn't play it here because of that. But now he is playing it again with a whole new purpose behind it.
And listen to the lyrics.
Yes.
Idiots.
It may be a lost cause.
I mean, he does. Does lay it out pretty plain in those lyrics.
Yes, I agree.
No, well, I mean, you only need to really have working ears. Like you barely have to be sentient to like understand what the. Anyway, but that's another story. But we're telling again, and I think you're right, Julia. I think that it's like even more relevant now than. But I do have a memory. Julia probably wasn't even born then, but in the USA.
I was born when this album came out, but I won't tell you how old I was.
Yeah.
We're happy to hear that. Though.
Yeah. But at the time I was, of course, very young, but old enough to know. No, but the time and the explosion of this album and what it really did, like it totally exploded. Like you could not. It was everywhere. It was everywhere, and it was all the time. And then it developed this whole other splintering in interpretations. So interesting, and that we've come back around again. The time is a flat circle. All right. Thank you, Julia. All right, Tom.
All right. I'd like to keep talking about Bruce Springsteen, but I will stop. But that is a great book.
No, keep it going. Why not?
So my next book is Sigrid Nunez's It Will Come Back to You. So, Deborah, we've been talking all year about, at least from the Penguin publishers, this is the year of the master novelists who are masters of that form, delivering a collection of short stories in 2026. And that's the case with Sigrid Nunez. So we had Lauren Groff, Ruth Ozeki, who had that was a month ago, we published her first collection. And now we have the first collection of Sigrid Nunez, winner of the National Book Award for The Friend. She's been writing, for 25, 30 years. This is her 11th book. But she really only became, she broke out finally with The Friend when she won the National Book Award. And it's so fantastic to see the world now appreciating the voice of Sigrid Nunez. And she's been writing these short stories. These short stories, 13 stories over the last 20 years. So you really see the evolution of her style in the stories and the range. They're fantastic. And what I love about her work is that she can be writing, there's philosophy in here, there is grief, there is loss, but there is also, she's so funny. She can be devastatingly funny in the most, it takes you up short and you are like, it's so like life. All of her books are so like life. All of her stories, novels, and her novels are short. So it's no wonder that when she turns to short stories, she's got that. So it's exciting to have a brand new book from Sigrid. All the trade reviews, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Book List, all 5-starred reviews. Kirkus says Nunez delivers vivid portraits of people living quiet lives of desperation in these sterling short stories. And then the best quote ever about Sigrid Nunez will always be Dwight Garner's, which I completely agree with. He said about one of the last 3 novels, they are wise, provocative, funny, good, and strong company. And I always feel that when I'm reading anything by her. Good and strong company. I want to be in the company of this narrator, these characters, because they make me feel, it's like I recognize these people and they're fantastic. So if you haven't read a novel of Sigrid Nunez, start with a collection of stories, but read her for sure.
I love Quiet Desperation. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
But then also her sentences,
Yes.
just in and of themselves, they're sort of short sentences. They're simple sentences, but they're so evocative and go so deeply that
Yes.
they feel like they're much more written than they are, which
Yeah.
really takes a lot of skill. And
Yes.
we have been talking about short stories. It's really been an amazing year for short stories collections of all kinds. And this is definitely a really great one to add to the list. I'm
And
so
there were
happy about
I'm
these.
good. I know, and I was going to say that there are surprises here too. There are stories that remind you of the novels, but then she's written a crime story here that
Right.
only she could have written in this way. I mean, it's so good.
It's great. It's fantastic. I'm so glad that publishers are opening up a little bit more lately to short form. It's great. Thank you, Tom. All right, Dave. I'm gonna start off the last round of the day.
Okay, home stretch. All right, my final book today is really fun and really playful. Something that came out 10 years ago. It is a book called The Graphic Design Playbook. It has been newly reissued in this revised and expanded 10th anniversary edition. I was selling Chronicle 10 years ago, and I never got a copy of this, and it went out of print, and it plagued me. And when I found out we were doing a 10th anniversary reissue, I was very excited. So this landed in my hands last week. It is such a delightful book. As someone that loves graphic design, typography, poster design, anything just with kind of like that kind of graphic quality. This is so exciting. These are playful activities, puzzles, and games for graphic designers to hone their skills of visual communication. But what's so cool about this package, and it's such a cute little happy thing, it's beautifully printed throughout. It's got like amazing inks and kind of different colors and different textures and paper and stuff. What's so cool is that embedded in the middle, this like pure Chronicle paper fun, is this little mini book, if you can see. And this is great. It's bound in with this little snappy ribbon. What you do, this is the first time I've done this. Wow, that was easy. The little mini book pulls right out. And then what you have here are things like die cuts and stencils to use. There is a sheet of stickers and little appliques that can be used in the great graphics and games. There are these elements that can be cut out. And then there are collage games and puzzles throughout the book that use these elements. So you actually use this midsection. There's things like gradients. Like there's a whole section where you create your own graphic poster and they give you a theme. And then you can use these gradients as well as some of these like collageable elements on the papers. There's different, I'm totally disassembling the whole thing. There's different little colored paper scraps. Everything fits into the little book in the middle. And that little ribbon keeps it all, of course, it's all over my desk now. That little ribbon keeps it all intact. So it is an art object. It is sort of like this just fun thing for designers to flip through, teaching you about typography, about the use of space and composition, the weight of letters and forms. And again, these are all these really playful activities that are here just to kind of spur your mind, to show you how visual thinking works and to kind of hone your skills and sharpen them. It's only 24. I think this is a lot of fun in a book for people that love graphic design and visual play. And it's just a very cool gift for a student or a professional or anybody that loves this kind of visual thinking. Just a very playful and delightful little book. Happy to finally have a copy.
You want a copy of that book? For
Okay.
sure. Well, I mean, I like when I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, no, I love the whole idea of it and that you can use your hands to do something instead of trying to. No, I think that's an important part of the creative process as well. I do think something's lost when you're only dealing with a screen all the time.
Hmm.
I think it's important to use your hands to move things around and see things in an actual three-dimensional space, it helps with the grip on reality, in my opinion.
It kickstarts your brain, like in a
Yeah,
tactile, it's connected, and yeah, it wakes you up. It wakes your imagination up
exactly.
in a
And
way.
so it's a fantastic idea. I love it. And things that you can manipulate. I spent a lot of time working with kids, very pre-K, with kids who are sometimes having problems, verbal, like articulating or communication problems and that kind of thing, and various trying to wake up connections for the kids, and manipulatives, things you can touch and move and put in places and see. It was a very important part of early learning, and along with the retro gadgets, I think this I'm sensing a theme in your
A
books today.
return to tactility,
Yeah, no, it's important. I
analog
think
magic.
it's
It's good
grounding,
stuff.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's grounding.
And if you're a creative person also who, who wants to learn more about that. So, great book. Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Julia?
Okay.
Speaking of kids,
Well, yeah, speaking of kids, well, also speaking of, I saw the day after 4th of July, lots of people's videos announcing it now Halloween season because 4th of July is over. So I have a kids book. This is a little board book called Let's Go Home Little Witch, and it came out yesterday. And I just wanted to shout out like the publisher and this series of books that they're doing. So Nosy Crow is a great children's publisher that does just these like absolutely wonderful mostly interactive, some not, but mostly children's books. So these board books, you can see on the cover here, it's got this little slide thing, and you bring this little witch home. And so on each page, or whatever we're calling that in a board book, you bring home these little creatures. So let's go home little werewolf, let's go home little vampire, let's go home little ghost, things like that. And kids can it's a tactile book for kids. So they get a little story, you read them the story in the book, and then they can sort of play and manipulate the different little creatures. And this is part of a series. It's got Let's Go Home Baby Bunny, Let's Go Home Baby Shark, Let's Go Home Baby Tiger. These are huge, huge, huge bestsellers for us and do really well. And I feel like these kinds of things, they have finally found a way to have these interactive books for kids that don't get destroyed in the store. So I feel like these are really just like this whole collection of books, but also in observance of the fact that we are now entering spooky season for some people. I would argue it doesn't start till September, but who am I to judge?
we were talking, was it last week with Kristen? I don't yeah, Kristen were you on with Kristen, Julia?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so so we were talking with Kristen from our Scholastic rep about how it's just Halloween should just be year round, I think.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Right?
is fun. A little witch never is, I'm never sad about seeing a little witch.
But honestly, of all the seasonal kids books, it's the Halloween ones that do sell year round. If
Yeah.
got them, the kids are always picking up those books, and without regard to what month it is, because these are fun, witches
Well,
and ghosts and
yeah,
that's fun.
as my grandpa would say, kids love a spookaroo. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
they, yeah.
But also very important point about the books that either pop up or that you slide and that kind of thing, because that is a definite hazard. They're like little pieces of paper all over the kids section, usually with these books, and they really improved the technology.
Yes,
Those books.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
but they're fun. And I feel like you get kids to pay attention a little better too when they have something to sort of focus
yeah.
their, speaking of tactile things, focus their hands on and feel
Exactly.
and like move. And so they're really fun. Kids really do seem to love them. And I think they're fun for parents too, because they've got some little like, this one particularly has a little, you spot different things, the full moon, you spot the skeletons and the bubbling slime and the owl and all sorts of fun Halloween things. So
Perfect. Thanks, Julian. All right, before we wrap it up for the day, before Tom gives us his last book, I just wanted to do a quick shout out, and I was telling these guys about it before we went live. Which it went on sale yesterday. It's called The Simp by Roshan Sethi. There it is. It's a great cover too. And I read the advanced reader copy so many months ago, like right when they had something available. And I've been like wanting to talk about it. And then I forgot because it was so many months ago that I read it. And then I just realized it went on sale yesterday. And I wanted to just mention it and tell people about it because I just think it's a fantastic book. I couldn't put it down when I was reading it. Okay, basic premise. You have an Indian living in Los Angeles. He's Indian. He's a closeted gay person, and he has a lot of internal struggles going on. His family wanted him to work in their auto parts business, which he didn't want to do because he wanted to be an actor, and so they cut him out of the will, and then they died. So he's struggling financially and a struggling actor. No one believes in him. He's finding it hard to get parts because there are, even though it's supposed to be, like more open now for people of color to get, parts in films and that, it's still very limited. There's like, 2 Indian parts, and if you're not one of the the 2 Indians who always get the parts, then you're out of luck. He does such a brilliant job of sort of conveying that whole part of the story, as well as the next part, the main part, which is that our narrator, a novel without a hero, he says it's kind of like not even an anti-hero, but like a missing hero, right? And he answers an ad from this power couple, which is based on a real ad that this couple took out, saying they wanted this outrageous list of demands for this personal assistant that they wanted to make life easier for them, which included just like every indulgent, like awful personal assistant thing you can think of, like, dog systems, buying special kale and lamb at Erewhon for the dog, and taking care of the child that they have who's totally neglected, and just demeaning tasks, cleaning, everything, scheduling for these like insanely narcissistic and like just horrible couple. So he applies for the job. Why not? And part of it is his own self-loathing, right? And part of it is sort of like a challenge to become this simp for these people, right? But as he gets better kind of at the job, the resentment starts bubbling within him, and it like leaks out in various times in various ways. And there's this rising sense of tension in the novel where you're just waiting for this guy to go completely postal and do something. And so there's sort of that tension and watching where these little leaks come. And anyway, the author does this absolutely stunning job of bringing all of this in and making it an incredibly fast-moving, funny, sharp, with great satire, but also like there are moments of real poignancy in this character's life. I couldn't put it down. I just thought it was brilliant, and of course, it's like we needed another one. Amazing takedown of this LA culture, right? Like everybody who lives in LA is going to relate. They probably even mentioned the Country Mart, I think, possibly might come into play. But it's a wonderful book. It's great. I couldn't put it down. And I've been waiting to talk about it, so now I have. And that's The Simp by Roshan Sethi. All right. Thank you for indulging me.
Sounds good.
I would let Shannon talk about it because it's a Simon & Schuster book, and Shannon is not going to be on for a while. So, all right, Tom, bring it home.
Okay. So a few years ago, I talked about one of my very favorite books of the year. That year was Wright Thompson's The Barn, which was the true story of the murder of Emmett Till. I have another book in that vein that is just as good, just as important, just as relevant, even more. I mean, it's terrible. That was published 2 or 3 years ago. I thought that was relevant for the time the year was published. Now, these books are even more necessary. So this is They Stole a City by Lauren Collins. So Lauren Collins is a New Yorker writer. And I should say the Sigrid Nunez and this book are out next Tuesday. So pre-order them, but I won't be on next Tuesday. So I want to talk about them today. So this is Lauren Collins is a New Yorker writer. So I'm sure you've read her many features in the New Yorker. I think it's only her second book, but this is very personal. She grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. And like Wright Thompson, grew up a white person in this place and did not know about what had happened in 1898. And so what happened was, after the Civil War and as there was Reconstruction, Wilmington, a very important port city at the time, became the sign of Black success. There were lawyers. The cultural life of the Black community was rich and growing. There were educators, elected officials, until November 10th, 1898, when there was a coup. Simply a coup. White supremacists planned and executed a coup and either killed or drove the Black community out of Wilmington. They went into City Hall, they took over. It is, shocking, still shocking. And yet, and even more shocking, of course, what happened, it was buried. The history was buried in the community and outside the community. So Lauren Collins was a teenager, like Wright Thompson was when he found out about what had happened at the barn. She found out, maybe, there was folklore about it. They said that the Cape Fear River ran red that day, but she didn't know. And so in this book, she's going back to Wilmington and she's talking to 4 families, 2 white, 2 Black, whose ancestors were there in one way or another, and following these families' stories over these, 125 years, and through Jim Crow, through desegregation, through the civil rights movement, all these things, but how that terrible day of destruction, has impacted all of these families through all of these years. It's such an American story that we can never hear it often enough. And I honestly think every city has its version of this event. I grew up in St. Louis. I know but I grew up not knowing the event in St. Louis around the same time. So it's a fantastic book, very important story that needs to be told, more urgent than ever right now to keep these stories alive so that they're not buried again. Highly recommend They Stole a City by Lauren Collins. This will absolutely be one of the, show up on best books of the year lists. It's Penguin Press, which also published The Barn, is publishing They Stole a City. Fantastic.
The Barn was sort of like a slow starter, and then it just
Yeah.
really took off. And I
Yeah.
think this one might be as well. And a lot of the comments I've seen from booksellers in North Carolina who were talking about how they didn't know about this,
Yeah.
or didn't learn about it until they were adults. Like it just never came up. And now, and now they know the story, and it's gotten so much amazing, positive feedback from booksellers, not just from North Carolina, but
Can I share one little piece from the book that
yeah.
has stayed with me? This is from very early in the book, but one of the Black women in the book started to learn about this from her grandmother. Her grandmother, who lay dying, began speaking to her in an agitated, almost hallucinatory tone. Never let it happen again, she said, as though she had traveled far from the mid-century suburbs where she was living. Brown wasn't sure what her grandmother meant. As her parents hustled her out of the room, Grandma Thalia caught her wrist, squeezing it tight. You have to know, she whispered. If it ever happens, run. Just absolutely chilling. And
Wow.
I mean, that's the kind of storytelling that's in this book.
Yeah, that's amazing. Incredibly powerful book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really looking forward to getting immersed in it because it is immersive. It sounds like.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Just to say, this is the only successful coup in American history that
Right.
happened in in
Right.
Wilmington. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there was a book a couple of years ago from it came out, I think, in 2020 actually, called Wilmington's Lie during the pandemic.
Right.
This one feels more like you can sink in, and it's not an academic book, and I say that
Right.
Right.
as it's
Right.
not like as hard to decipher, or sort of like it's more, the book that Tom you're talking about is more readable. But I read that Wilmington's Lie book because I did a Dawson's Creek podcast, and that show was filmed in Wilmington. And so I read it for the show. I know that's weird, like, but
I
this
love
is a
that.
fascinating story. I can't wait to read this book. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. Tom just sold 3 copies right now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. What great books. We filled a whole hour today just chatting, and such a great variety. I'm so glad that you all came on today to share it with us. Really, really appreciate it. Once again, the to be read list has expanded. Thanks to all of you. Dave Ehrlich from Chronicle Books, Julia Callahan from Hachette, and Tom Benton from Penguin. Thank you, Joey, behind the scenes, putting up all of the covers. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you tuning in. We are going to be back again next week. We will have more reps. We will have more books to talk about and more rabbit holes to go down. So hope you will come back and join us then. In the meantime, everybody have a great week and happy reading to all of you.